Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paradox Untold Stories from Athletic Directors. I am Dr. Danielle Lapointe, and my co host is Dr. Dustin Smith. And today we have Nathan DeLany with us. How are you today, Nathan?
I'm doing well. How are you guys all?
We are so excited to have you on today. I just came back from meeting you in person at a conference. So thank you for being here. And thank you to Ticket Spigot, who is our sponsor and makes all of our episodes possible. So, Dustin, how are you doing over there today?
Man, I'm living the dream in Greenwood, Arkansas. Just loving life here. Not quite as cold as what Nathan's experiencing right now. Well, it's cold. We just don't have the snow that Nathan's dealing with up there in Wisconsin. But man, I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to have Nathan on. I've gotten to know Nathan the last, I guess, 2 years now. That we were in the cohort together, and Nathan provided some probably unwanted banter. Well, he couldn't respond due to some phone situations. He couldn't respond to group text. So I say we collectively. I can't point fingers, but there were some. Their initials are. Well, I won't even go there. We'll just. Nathan was the subject of some of our banter.
Nathan can respond today.
Right,
That's
he
that's
can defend himself.
I
I might get the last laugh on that one. He probably could. But what was really fun is Nathan and I got to do the cohort together, and we made some great friends and some great connections with our cohort group. And again, I can't say enough great things about what that cohort program is and how you get to be connected with people. I mean, Nathan's in Wisconsin, I'm in Arkansas, and we got to share our vision, got to share what our athletic programs are about, and just kind of our leadership styles.
Hairstyles.
We share those. One of my buddies says it this way: God only made so many perfect heads, and He put hair on the rest of them. So
That's right.
Nathan and I can really celebrate that. But what I'm excited about is just to visit with Nathan. Nathan has challenged me to be a better administrator, be a better leader, and I'm excited to finally get Nathan on here. We've had some scheduling snafus. We've had some opportunities where we were going to do this in person, but flights really kind of delayed that. But Nathan is, man, he is a dude in Wisconsin, and not just Wisconsin, but around the world. He is well known, but in Wisconsin, I really like it that you guys call it WADA, which is their Athletic Directors Association. He's the president of that and just got finished putting on their state conference. So, Nathan, man, I'm excited for you to be on here. And what I want to say, I always ask this question: tell us what the resume doesn't tell us, because I can talk about you being in the cohort, I can talk about you being the president of WADA and all the things that you've done. But what does the resume not tell us about who Nathan DeLany is?
Well, I think for me, I'm a lot about my family. My daughter's a junior. She got to play her first varsity basketball game last night because we started. I have a 7th grade daughter, and my wife is an educator. So we are around educator and coach. So while being the athletic director isn't my life, it kind of is. We're around the building. We're in gyms, we're on fields, that's kind of what we do. But when I'm not doing that, it's, I enjoy golf. I enjoy being on the water in the summer. I used to think ice fishing was a lot of fun. It still is a lot of fun for a variety of reasons, but it needs to be the right temperature out. You typically need to have a dog to play games with when you don't really want to catch fish. But those are probably the biggest things. We like to travel, and but a lot of it really revolves around our family and just being able to enjoy time, because it's hard to believe that we moved here 12 years ago, and my daughter was in kindergarten or 1st grade, and now it's time to start thinking about school and college and post high school opportunities and whatever that may bring. But the golf business, I'll tell you, the thing that you'll see on my resume, I work in golf. I'm a PGA professional, and I only bring that up because that's where my love for golf comes. And there's a lot of things that came from that have helped me along the way, but kind of also that's why I really enjoy golf as my recreation, not as my job anymore. But
So let me ask this question. You said before we got on the air that you've had 3 or 4 inches of snow in the last few days, and you said basketball season opened last night. If 3 or 4 inches of snow fell in Arkansas, they shut down the state. I mean, you can't do anything. Everybody buys bread and water, and you can't or milk, and you can't get anything in the state because they just start freaking out. But you said you played with 3 or 4 inches of snow. Does that become an issue for you travel wise in Wisconsin?
it does, but it has to be significant and it has to be the right timing. If we're going to get a snowstorm or an ice storm or something like of that nature, and it's going to start at 1:30, 2 o'clock, and we know that we're starting to travel at 2:30 to 3:30, then it starts to become an issue. Um, it's funny you should ask about that. That is a good story, though. I'll get to that in a minute when you ask about that. but I don't sleep much in the winter until everybody's home. I don't know why that started. But 16 years later, I still, if somebody's on the road and I know there's snow, I want to know if they got home or at least got back to school. So it's just one of those things that we navigate. But we don't shut everything down just because we're going to get 1 to 2 inches of snow. It's going to
Well,
have to be in that 4 to 8, and then you start having a conversation. I mean, I grew up in Upper Michigan. Okay, so you might ask about where things are. I live in Wisconsin. I grew up 4 hours north of here. If we didn't just get in buses and start traveling, you weren't going to go very often because lake effect snow on Lake Superior, where it doesn't freeze over and it snows 1 to 3 inches every day. Yeah. So
yeah.
no. Sometimes
Where
gets you in trouble though.
Yeah, I was say where I'm originally from in New York, same thing. We would not have shut down for a couple inches of snow. Where I am now, I can most definitely say that we will shut down for a couple inches of snow. But yeah, it's very interesting how different regions across the country will react to the same storm. And as Dustin said, they shut down quickly.
Well, you said a word that I want to draw back to. You said significant, and I want to know what your definition of significant is, because for us, 3 or 4 inches would be significant. Apparently, that's not the case in Wisconsin.
No, you need to start talking that 5 to 8. And it really depends on the rate of snowfall, how much it snows per hour, and then the wind, because those two factors are dependent on what your visibility is and all those things. But yeah, it's significant is definitely over 4, Dustin. So I
You,
mean, we lived in Ohio too in grad school and early on in my career, and you're right, that's different. Hills, any amount of snow. Yeah.
and what's crazy for me is you're talking about 3 to 4 inches is not a big deal there. 2 weeks ago, we were dealing with tornadoes in Arkansas, and so you talked about not being able to sleep till teams got home. Well, we were on the road with football, so we had football cheer. They're trying to travel back through storms that were tornadic, and so obviously you don't sleep during that. But ours is a little different weather situation. Tornadoes significant. 3 to 4 inches of snow significant. I could fire significant out a lot for Arkansas that maybe not be as significant for you.
Yeah. No, those are all fair things.
So what I do want to tell you is if we ever play in a golf scramble, I want you on my team.
That's what you took out of this
Some
conversation.
people.
That's what Dustin took out of that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued in how you play golf. When you say golf and ice fishing together, I'm trying to figure out when golf season ends and ice fishing begins.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I actually golfed on October 28th. That was the last time I'll have played until probably April, if we're lucky. There are some years where it's been May before golf. Now, the year in 2020 when we were all dealing with COVID, the golf courses were the first thing that opened, and it was the nicest spring when we didn't have. It was 60 degrees on at the end of March, so we were able to start then and keep walking and get outside your house and not feel so isolated. But it all varies. It can be March to October. It can be May to Thanksgiving. It's just all.
Well, and what I'm thinking, and that's what you're asking, Dustin. My question is, what is it like to be your golf coach? I mean, or interview, come in and have a conversation with you about the golf team. Like, not something I'd want to do.
No, my golf coach my girls' golf coach actually plays in the fall, and it's not such a big deal. But my boys, they play in the spring, and first day of practice is usually that last Monday in March, and those first couple weeks are pretty rough.
So do they come to you and say, "Hey, can you give some pointers to these kids?" I mean, do you go out and do some coaching?
I do on occasion. I try not to step on toes as much as I can. Our current coach, he's the owner of our golf course in town, or one of them, and he's a really good player, so he knows. And we talk a lot about golf and course management and all the things that kind of go into trying to help kids, because I mean, that was the first head coaching job I had at 23 too, and there's lots of little things that you can try to help kids in a 6-week season, because that season goes so fast.
So do you ever play the trump card that I'm a pro, or I'm an AD, I'm the AD and I get the final say?
No.
Oh.
No. Nope, I don't, because if I wanted to do that, then I could coach everything, and I don't have the interest to do that. So
right.
No, I try not to pull that card ever.
Touche. I get you. So you talked about earlier you were 4 hours from where you grew up,
Yep.
And 4 hours from Michigan. Paint on a map exactly where in Wisconsin you're at.
On a map, if you were to look at the state of Wisconsin, and if you were to try to find the very center of the state, that's where Marshfield is. It's 2 hours north of Madison. It's 3 hours east of Minneapolis, 2 hours from Green Bay. So it's almost on a straight line between Minneapolis and Green Bay.
Do you wear a cheese head ever?
I've never worn a cheese head, but I am a Packer fan.
Okay.
I've been for life.
So you were real pleased on Sunday then.
I was very happy on Sunday. It was, it's been a rough year, but those things happen. High expectations are always high when it comes to Green Bay, and when you have the quarterback and talent that they think they have.
Do you ever ride your bike to work just like they do to football practice, to the spring?
No, that is not something I don't think I've ever done that. And I've been close enough, but I don't think I've ever done that, because you guys both know you can be called away to something at a moment's notice, and the bike or the moped doesn't really cut it when it's pouring rain.
Right. Mm-hmm. Or snowing
and
significantly.
It would happen that day that you brought the bike.
Oh, sure. Absolutely, it would happen. There's no question about that. I'm always reluctant just to let somebody borrow my car or to have it serviced. Something's going to happen that
day. Well, COVID brought it to where they come to you now.
Yes, right.
So now let's get into the fun, Nate. We can talk about all kinds of stuff. We can talk about the significant snowfall or not significant, or your golf abilities and that are significant, I'm assuming, if you're a pro. But let's talk fun. This is what Danielle loves the most, is the story time, and she tried to get you to tell us in advance, and I don't like to hear in advance. I like to just react. So I know in your time and being an administrator, you've got to have a story or two.
I have a couple stories, but I'll start with the one that has to do with weather. A couple years ago, we were supposed to play a school that's about an hour and 15 minutes from here. And we were under a winter weather advisory, which is normal for us. I don't know what they are like, where both of you are from, if you were to get those, what that would exactly entail, but
they're not normal for us.
Winter weather advisory, 2 to 4 inches, 10 to 15 mile an hour winds, not such a big deal. However, and we were talking to the school next to us, or that we were playing. They were going to travel, east. We were going to travel west. They were traveling to play someone else, and it was going to be fine. Well, the next thing you know, their county goes under a winter storm warning, which is a little different, which means it's double or triple the amount of snow. But that was, our bus had already left. This changed. I was bummed because there was not a lot of communication that they canceled their trips. So we were still coming, but they canceled all of their trips. So I was not exactly thrilled about that, but I got over that piece. There were a couple pictures of the road from the bus that made me a little nervous. They did eventually get there. I had some upset parents, which I understood because things changed and there wasn't a lot of communication. But I think where it turns better for me is that they were safe. They got to stay overnight. They had a great experience. And here's how I know they had a great experience. Every senior night for basketball for 4 straight years. What is your favorite basketball moment? The night we got snowed in this city was the best basketball moment that I will remember. So fast forward, last year was the last of the 4 years of seniors that got to tell that story. So at the end of, we do an end of year athletic awards for our seniors. And during my speech, I just kind of I said to the crowd, I said, I have a connection with this class. I'm really excited that come senior night next winter for girls basketball, I no longer have to hear my favorite moment was the night that we got snowed in X. And I had a couple of the kids in my leadership group, and they were, I could see their faces and they were just laughing because they turned a bad situation into a very positive and great situation where they felt like that was their best memory. And, when they graduated this last year, that was 4 years later. So for them to still say that that's their favorite basketball memory, I'm like, all right, well, we did something right because it's still memorable. But I laughed as much as I could this last year when they all walked across the stage because I was like, I don't have to hear that anymore. I'm really, really excited.
I'm free. I'm free.
The pressure is off. I mean, it's not, but it's off temporarily.
So let me ask this question. Were they successful on the court?
No, they were rattled. So it was a bummer.
So would that lead to them having their best memory in basketball because they didn't win, or would it be, over their time as a student athlete? I think we put a lot of pressure on kids to win games and make that the most memorable thing for them. But for these girls, clearly it wasn't the most memorable thing. They may have won games, they may have won championships, but the most memorable thing for them was the time that they got to spend together. And I think we need to understand that as ADs, that sometimes it's not the result of a game, it's the situations that they get to make the most of.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing that I tried. That was my message this year to them, that I was able to play off of, obviously, the situation that, it's never, wins and losses are great. And if you win championships, you are going to remember those things, but that experience is what they're going to take away, and that bond that they had. And so that was,
know
for me.
Do you know what actually happened that night, or you just don't want to even ask?
As far as what?
Well, you're saying it was the best night, their best memory. Like,
I just think that they were able to bond, and it was goofy and quirky. And I think, staying overnight always tends to change things with teams. We were better coming out of it because they felt like if that's the worst that happens to us and we survive, we're going to be fine.
How far away was it?
Literally 75 miles.
Oh, okay.
So not incredibly far.
Had they planned to stay? Would they pack clothes, or did they just
Oh
have to wear
no,
the same
absolutely
stuff?
not. No, no, no.
I just asked that
75
because I've
miles.
got a teenage daughter, and I know what her reaction would have been. Hey, Dad, I don't have this. I don't have this. I don't have my phone charger. I don't have the necessities. Um, and so them just having to make do. Did they go to hotels? Did they just stay at the school?
No,
What
they had,
ended up happening?
I did have a reservation that I worked out to get a hotel because I didn't want our coach to deal with it. I just wanted her to deal with the game and trying to keep them calm and focus. And I took care of some of that other stuff. So no, it was okay. It wasn't great, but like you said, Dustin, I mean, that's their memory. Like that's something that is a negative turned into a positive, and that's what they'll remember a lot about their high school experience.
Well, I think we shortchange kids sometimes too. My son was going through school. He'd always say, "I'm so bored. I'm so bored." And I'd say, "Well, when I was a kid, we went outside and played. We didn't have the phones. We didn't have the computers. We didn't have the iPads. We didn't have all this technology. We created our own fun. And these kids had to create fun, if you will, just have memories and make the best of a bad situation. But kids are resilient. They'll surprise you sometimes and make the most out of a situation you think may be dire. They end up having a great time with it.
Yeah, they had a great time. The adults not so much, but the kids did.
Well, and that I get why that would be a very stressful night for you. That's
Yes.
not planned, and there's so many things that could not go
Well,
well, and I'm glad it went well. So yeah,
Especially when
right.
you don't sleep till they get home.
Yeah,
And they
no, that
won't
was
long
one.
sleep
night
till
for
the
you.
next
No,
day.
that one I definitely went to sleep on because I knew they were asleep. But
Okay.
you know, the other hard part about that is I did have other trips that were out and that went and came home, but they went the opposite direction. Instead of going west, they went east, and it wasn't the same. So it was just a matter of circumstance. I'm glad everyone was healthy and safe, and that they can still laugh and have that be one of their favorite basketball memories.
Just not at your expense anymore.
Nah,
No.
it's not so much at my expense anymore until the next sibling comes through.
Right. So how did you handle those parents? I mean, what were those conversations like with them to say, "Hey, we're just going to board them up tonight and just make sure they get home safely tomorrow"?
I did, I made sure, once we had made that decision, I sent out an email to all of their parents and just said, I kind of explained how we made the decision to even go. And then just based on deteriorating roads and circumstances and talking to the bus company that this is in our best interest to keep them all safe, and they're going to stay overnight. For the most part, that was suffice. They were just happy that there was a communication and a decision and some more information about the thought process. But then, there were one or two parents that were upset that wanted me held accountable. I don't know what exactly that was going to mean, but but we worked through that, and my principal was really supportive, and our superintendent was supportive, and you just kind of work through. It, and I was apologetic. If I had to do it all over again, yes, I would do it differently. I would have made the phone call to their athletic director at 3:05, and he would have told me they had canceled now to turn our bus around. So it just, I do follow up more regularly now, even after decisions are made. I follow up again.
Yeah, it wasn't significant when you left, is what you should have told them. The snow
Right, there
wasn't
you go.
significant when we left.
Uh,
I
yeah.
just think about, just being in your shoes, and we always talk about takeaways from these stories. And, you said you follow up more now, even when decisions are made. But I think another key point that you made was the discussion you had. It wasn't just with you making the decision. You were talking to other people, getting them involved in the decision.
Mhm.
And so once we made that decision, it wasn't just you flying solo. Sometimes we have to fly solo, make a decision, but you need support of those above you that are going to say, yeah, we had your back through this situation. We all agreed this was the best thing to do.
Yeah, when it snows, that's usually not solo decision made, just because it's a little more complicated, and you
Well,
don't
it's a
want.
hard decision. I
It
mean,
is.
any all weather just related decisions are hard because you never know if you're making the right call. Like, is it going to be worse? Is it going to miss us? You're relying on only the information you're given by the weatherman. So I definitely think that it's a hard thing, but you're right. The safety is the most important thing. And, once you figure that out, you did that. So I don't know how many things you could do differently when it comes to weather. Sometimes it just happens and things just change quickly.
Right.
Um, was this a weekend or was this during the week?
This was a Tuesday night.
Ooh. And your daughter wasn't on this team, right?
No, no, my daughter's only a junior. She was still in 7th grade. No, 8th grade. No.
Oh, sorry to
Just to
laugh at that.
complicate things, it being a weekday. If it's a weekend, there's not so many people upset, but a weekday.
Yes. Well, and on the weekends, you guys know you're flying a little more solo than you are during the week. Not everybody's as readily available to offer opinions.
Until after the decision's made. They'll
Well,
offer them then.
well, and especially those sports like wrestling or gymnastics or cross country, that leave 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning because they have weigh-ins or they have X, Y, or Z. Those are a lot more complicated.
Yeah, especially if it's a Saturday morning and nobody else is around to talk to
Correct.
at 5:30 in the morning.
It's kind of like, I'm fine to have the conversation about should we go, should we not go. The one I don't like is when the bus doesn't show up. That's the worst one. That's the one I can't control.
So does the district provide the buses or do you contract with a bus company?
We have a district-wide contract
Okay.
with a bus company.
See, we
So
have
these are
coaches that
school
drive.
buses.
95% of the time, but the kids that went on this trip that we're talking about, they were on a coach bus. They were on a motor coach.
They're on okay. Yeah.
See, and it complicates things for me a little bit because my coaches drive. So
Yep.
we take the yellow buses, and they're between here and Northwest Arkansas. There's like 12 bridges that are like a lot of feet off the ground, and
Oh
so
my God.
bridges ice before the
Ice.
roads do,
Yep.
and so your coaches are panicked anyway, and so we take the travel really serious, especially going up and down the hill because of the consequences could be pretty bad if you mess up. So our ramifications, it could be significant
Yes.
in the terms of Nathan, but that complicates things for us because it's not a bus company that does it. It's our coaches that are driving.
Right. I
Well,
had that
and not
in
all.
first school, so
Well, no, not only are you guys talking about having to make like decisions to keep the safety of your teams and your coaches and your kids, but now you're also adding the whole thing of rescheduling and figuring all of that out on your plate too. That goes hand in hand. So like once you get over like this is the call I made, I'm glad I made this call. I'm sticking to this call, and now you're like, all right, now I got to fix what I just did. I have to reschedule it and figure out when there's gym space and all of that. So there's a lot that goes into these cancellations due to weather that I think are definitely affected more in the northern states. And like hats off to everybody who deals with that because it's not a good time.
no, it's not. But you're right. I mean, but you take the rescheduling part out of it, except in the spring. Rain's different. Rain is not snow. Rain is not ice. But yeah, the winter is definitely something you got to think about.
And when's baseball season for you?
Starts in March.
Starts in
It's
March.
kind of like the golf season.
Yeah, bitter cold early, and then
Yep, we play games in the 40s.
whew, is there a cutoff?
that
Like it's too cold to play?
We've started to try to have one. Once it gets under 40, then we need to seriously start looking at the wind chill. And there are conferences in our state that do that, have set standards for things, but we try not to. We need to be flexible because sometimes it could be 40 degrees on May 20th, and that's the last regular season date, and it's the last conference game. And so, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
when do you
I
make
remember.
that up? And do you have a conference tournament, or does it impact state? Is it even worth playing, or is it senior night? All the stuff that can go into a
Mhm.
May 20th game with 40-degree weather.
Yep.
Whew.
I remember our warm up in high school. We'd have to shovel the field. There'd be a dusting or a couple inches in the field, and like our warm up for lacrosse would
Yeah,
be
I believe that.
shoveling the field before we could even practice. And if you think lacrosse balls are hard normally, wait until that thing gets cold and frozen. It's a much harder, much
Well, and
much
you're
harder
cold
ball.
too. It's not just the ball, but it's you who's cold too. So it compounds it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Hmm.
So,
Yep.
Nathan, I'm sure maybe you have another weather story, but maybe you don't even want to talk weather. Maybe you got another
Hmm.
story that you just want to fire out there because you said you'd start with weather first.
Well, I started with
Hmm.
weather first because we were talking about I did
Hmm.
have to shovel off lines 2 years ago during COVID because it's on October 20th. It snowed 4 inches while we were playing a regional soccer game. It did not snow the entire first half, not at all the first half. With 20 minutes to go in the match, it was fully covered with 2 to 3 inches on it.
You're
Wow.
running around on a
So
whole.
I had my maintenance guys. I didn't need my jacket anymore. Let me tell you, because it was heavy and wet. But anyways, no, the other. I was thinking of two other stories that have kind of jogged my memory. But the first one, when I referenced the whole golf thing, and I literally was a 23-year-old head coach in golf in Cincinnati, and you're naive, and the parents and the kids they want to have a potluck before we start the season. So I'm the naive 23-year-old. I go over to this house, which is fine. The kids all go back to our football scrimmage, and the parents kind of start drilling me. We start talking about, well, I'm going to drive, much like your coaches drive, Dustin. I was going to drive a van because I'm only taking 5 kids. I don't need to take a whole full school bus for 5 kids. Well, the one parent goes, well, can you drive? And I'm like, well, yeah, I can drive. I've been driving for 8 years, but I mean, is there an issue? And he's like, no, you're just about as young as it can be. I said, yep, that's probably true. And we kind of move forward, and he's laughing. I'm like, oh, this is not going to go well. This is just not good. But probably the most cringeworthy part, and I know you asked about funny and cringeworthy, this is more cringeworthy for me. So I had 2 kids. They were very competitive. They'd probably been the most competitive kids in their class with each other growing up. And I talk about some ethical things and some standards that I was going to have as a program. And the next thing you know, we're talking about cheating and being honest and things that apply to golf. Not that they don't apply to every sport, but they apply to golf specifically. Next thing I know, there's a golf ball flying at me. And it kind of hits my hand, and it kind of just drops. And while it's in midair, this parent goes, what are you going to do about this? And I just kind of paused for a minute. I kind of gathered myself. I picked up the golf ball, the most important thing, because I dropped that all over the dining room table. And so I pick it up, and I kind of glance at it, and I see what's written on it. So I know exactly where this is going. Even though I knew exactly where it was going. I just got done talking about ethics and cheating and what am I going to do about it. And, I looked at the ball. I looked back up at the parents. I said, this isn't the right time for this, but I'll deal with this in due time. And, I'll follow up with X, Y, and Z. And I didn't say who it was because I didn't tell anybody. And, I just kind of moved on. But I'm like, why do I want to do this? Like, this is what these parents are going to do, like right in front of each other. They're just going to call you out, and then basically call, X, this son is, this player is a cheater because this kid wants to play. And I mean, it was a battle. I dealt with the situation and we worked through it. But it was a battle because those two were freshmen that year. And this was my first year coaching. So it was a battle for 3 years. And then the one student left and went to a different school, which was fine. I mean, it was a bummer for our team because we would have been really good, but your first experience as a coach should not be someone throwing something at you, trying to figure out what you're going to do next. I mean, it was just ridiculous to me.
At a potluck.
At a potluck.
I mean,
right. At a potluck.
And all while you're talking about driving earlier, but like you're also too young to rent a car too. Like on Enterprise says you can't rent a car yet.
Not yet.
They're trying to deal with all of this and like
it was brutal. I mean, I think about that to this day because it makes me laugh. I don't know if it will make others laugh, but it makes me laugh because who
You're
does
still
that?
struggling with it.
I just can't get over that part.
Well, who does that?
I never
the
got over
23-year-old first-year head coach.
The 23-year-old first-year-old head coach. Let's see what buttons we can push and what he's going to do.
See how far we can get with this guy.
Right. Oh,
that's exactly what they were thinking too. That is actually what they're thinking.
I went home and I looked at Amy and I was like, I don't know that I should be doing this. This is nonsense. I didn't get into this to do this.
Well, at what point did you have a conversation with those kids and say, "You aren't leaving me at the house by myself"?
Yeah, I don't know that I ever had that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be in all honesty, that the parents of the two kids knew what it was and the parent that of the kid that was kind of being accused, they kind of talked to me before they left, and I just reassured them. I said, there's more to this story, and I'll look into it. Just try to stay calm, and we'll figure it out. But I walked back in the house, and the senior parents are like, "We got your back on this, but that was ridiculous." And I was like, you know what? I appreciate that, but that was a sign for it's time for me to go. As much as I'd like to stay, I need to go.
Well, did you really want to stay? Is the question.
I was like, I need out. I need out now.
I feel like in all of your stories so far, there's like a theme. Like that song, like "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" It keeps popping up like in my head for you.
Oh yes, that's all right though. At least that there's had to be decisions to be made. Maybe they weren't the best all the time, but they were some decisions.
So as you leave this place and you talked about talking to Amy and talking about that situation, did you ever talk to your AD and say, "Hey, I was put in this spot"? Who did you reach out to and say, "Give me some advice on how I should have handled this, or if I could have handled it different"?
Let's see. So that would I was a grad student in the athletic department at Xavier University at my first year, and I talked to a couple of my colleagues that were academic advisors as well, and I talked to our head academic advisor who worked with our men's basketball program, and those were the people I talked to. And then I became friends with other coaches in our conference very, very quickly because we started the next week and we had five tournaments in a week in August, and so you see the same people, and I just asked them, "Is this normal? Should I expect this?" I mean, because the athletic director was actually new at the school, so he didn't necessarily have the history with the former coach, and so I just kind of was like, I moved to Cincinnati to make my own network and try to do it on my own, away from what I was used to and normal. And I just felt like I went the right way and tried to just to see if anybody else got to experience the fun of golf balls being thrown at them at a potluck.
So, did you have conversation with said kids at
I
any
did.
point? And did you have to straighten that out, or was there an issue throughout the year with those two?
There was always an underlying issue until the one student transferred to a different school, um, but the issue kind of went away, so to speak, because they were no longer competing for the same spot because they were both good enough so that they were always both playing. But there was always this underlying needling that I always felt like I had to deal with and referee, and it didn't matter how many times I would have the conversation. It kind of just kept going on and on.
Did you have to have conversations with potluck parent, or can we call it pissed off potluck parent or whatever? I mean,
I
I don't
did
know how
have
you
that. I
label it.
did. I didn't have to. I did. Um, and it went okay. I just asked. He said, if there's something that comes up, that's not the venue, because everybody else didn't need to know.
Right.
Now everybody knows that there's an issue, and not everybody else needed to know there's an issue. I just, I kind of came from that lens that everybody doesn't need to know the business that these two students have going on.
Yeah, it's not public. I mean, it doesn't
No,
have to be public. It can be between those two, and obviously you were involved in that now because you got thrown a golf ball at you. But I just try to imagine being 23 and in that spot. We talked with Chris Hobbs, and he was a 23-year-old physical education teacher, and he was drilling people with 100-mile-an-hour tennis
I
balls
heard that. I heard
out
that.
of a pitching machine, and here you get a golf ball thrown at you at 23.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of like what's going through the parents' head that was like, this is a good idea. Like this is an acceptable thing to do. I'm gonna show him like
I
ah
yeah, I don't think it was to embarrass me or to put me on the spot as much. I just think they wanted to see if I was going to react and to try to put someone else's kid in a bad light, which I don't have time for, and that's not why I'm there. And yes, I have to deal with it, but we all do that. We still have to protect kids. Even when they make mistakes, we still have to protect them, even if parents and adults don't want you
to. Well, I can tell you what I don't want to do. I don't want to have a potluck with you around.
No, I don't. I don't go to very many potlucks. I don't go to very many award ceremonies unless I'm in charge of them now.
I mean, great life advice for ADs out there.
It's unfortunate, but it is the truth.
That's amazing.
I mean, I've got some life mottos. One is I don't stay in a hotel with a number in it. And two, I don't intercept a punch intended for somebody else. Nathan's are, I don't go to awards assemblies or potlucks unless I'm in charge of them. Great sound life advice.
I wish it didn't have to be like that, but it is. I wish it didn't have to be like that.
Well, I mean, think about it though, Dustin. Who was it? Was it that got pushed into the buffet?
Oh, that was Scott Jarvis.
Was it Scott? Was it Scott? Gravy all over him, or pushed into a buffet from behind. So, like, potlucks aren't safe for ADs, is what I'm taking away from this.
That's a takeaway.
Well, he was a coach at that point. He wasn't the AD. He was a coach.
But yeah, you're right. You're right. A parent like tackled them from behind, like into the food or something like that, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it wasn't good.
But you think about, I mean, tip my hat to you again, Nathan, for being still involved in athletics after that situation. I mean, your first year, somebody throwing that at you, literally throwing a golf ball at you, but also that situation, you're thrust into it. We don't get to pick those situations. Mm-hmm. If we pick those situations, we probably wouldn't. We'd probably have a lot more people staying in athletic administration, but we don't get to pick those situations. We just have to be in it. And I mean, part of my sarcastic side would have been just grab the ball and throw it back at him and say, how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to deal with this, me throwing it at you? But you handled yourself well and said, this ain't the time to do it.
No, it's just
Way better than what Dustin did.
I wish probably they do that to me today. I either walk out or I just be like, I'm like you. I probably toss it back at them because I'm like, you don't understand. Just walk away. But
Yeah, I don't have time for your little childish games.
correct, correct.
Which I'm sure would also go over very well.
Oh, incredibly well, incredibly well.
Yeah.
I just think of the what do they call it? Intestinal fortitude of that parent to be able to throw that at you and just say, "Hey, we're going to see what happens," and just kind of. I mean, I just don't know that. I mean, I question obviously the intelligence behind it, but again, kudos to you for being able to handle that right and say this ain't the place to do that. We can have that discussion, but this isn't the place to do it.
Yeah. I try not to think about how you get to that point where you think that's a good idea.
Right. Which is really the podcast. The reason we have this podcast is because a lot of people get to a point where we're just like, this isn't a great idea, but we're going to do it anyway.
Note to self, don't throw balls at people.
Yeah. At a potluck for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, I just try to process these scenarios and these situations that you were in and to be able to, I mean, I just cringe because you said it earlier, you cringed, but that was your first year.
Uh-huh.
That was your first, I don't want to say team function, but it could have been a team function.
First 10 days.
That was the first 10 days.
Did you go back to your grad program and say, I'm out? You didn't put this in any of the coursework. I'm out.
No. No, apparently I'm glutton for punishment. I don't know.
You stayed in it.
You do things.
Maybe that we can just blame it on Ohio. That's what we'll do.
OHIO, you betcha. But it gave me it was a great opportunity and platform to get to where I was today. So it's all right.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing that because there's going to be other ADs out there who have had a very bad first experience right in the beginning or coaches either way. But I also feel like we've drummed up some like deep feelings for you between having to never think about no win, no eat again, and then your first 10 days as a coach. Those are not the best. So I appreciate you sharing those because I do think they're valuable and people are going to be able to be like, oh, it's not just me who started like that.
No, it's not just you or me.
Well, look where he's ascended to. He's the president of WADA. I mean, he is somebody in the state of Wisconsin for sure. And he started out, the old song, started at the bottom, now I'm here. That may be applying to Nathan right here.
He's a pro AD right now. That's what he is. Pro AD.
I don't ever go there. Don't ever go there. There's always something to learn. There's always something to learn.
Well, and the unfortunate thing is there's always another day and there's no telling what's going to happen. And parents, I heard this statement the other day, actually in a cohort meeting. He said, parents are never going to be objective about their own child. And you think about that, even in that situation, that parent wasn't going to be objective. It was going to be the other kid's fault no matter what. And so we've got to process some of that as leaders, that parents are going to be very honed in on their kid. And their kid will maybe not do anything wrong. And we've got to deal with that and balance that, whatever that is as an AD.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. You have to try to empathize and be sympathetic, but at the same time, got to be able to look at it from a different lens.
Well, and you're a parent of a kid that's in high school. I mean, do you ever sit there and think, man, I can't act that way because I've seen how crazy some parents are. And I don't want to ever get to that point. Even with my kid, I'm like, I'm not going to fight that battle because I understand what the AD is going through. I understand what the coach is dealing with. I'm not going to be the idiot that piles on because we got enough of those that they're dealing with anyway.
I'm just gonna go with yes. I could go a lot.
Let me pull that sword. I appreciate
I
you.
could go a lot deeper. But those are conversations that, I mean, imagine that. So you have, my daughter's a junior. Her dad's the athletic director. Her mom is the freshman volleyball coach. She plays basketball and volleyball. I played basketball in college. So, and I've coached both of my daughters in basketball. So yeah, but I fully support both of the coaches that we have, and I try to stay in the AD world when it comes to my kids. And sometimes that doesn't always go over well in my own family. But I think it is the fairest thing to do for my kids, because then, well, you're the 80s kid. That's why you're playing, or that's why this doesn't happen to you. Or so I try to just stay in what I call level land, where I don't go up and down on the roller coaster of emotions when it comes to their experience. Don't get me wrong, internally it's way different, but externally you just can't. You just can't.
Yeah. So you talk about it in your home. My wife is always like, I thought you were competitive. How are you not getting upset at this? And I'm just like, I've seen it, and I've seen what it does, and I don't want my daughter to be that label. Oh, you're the AD's kid, so that's why you're on the team. You didn't get cut because of this. And I just won't let the emotions outside dictate how I'm perceived, or how my daughter's perceived. I try to do what's best for her, even though my wife wants me to be a little more, how should I say it? A little more
dad.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are times I've told them, we had a little league football. We have a little league football program here, and my daughter was a cheerleader. She was a sixth grader, and so we had a game on the road. So I go to support her being a cheerleader, and for the other team, a parent comes out of the stands and fights the coach. Wants to, I mean, really swinging everything, and they're like, "Dustin, what are you going to do?" I'm like, "I'm a DAD today. I'm not the AD. I'm just going to sit here." Not my rodeo, not my goat roping. I'm just going to sit there and watch this happen.
It's one of your rules, right? You don't get in the way of a punch intended for someone else. That you just said.
I'll let it get tired out before I jump out there. But
maybe I should have talked to you about this before I experienced that last year. But anyways,
well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to be with us today and to share your experiences, as much anxiety as they've caused you over the years.
Yeah, it's all right. Somebody will laugh, or somebody will have an experience just like it.
Well, and I think that's the point of why we do this. We do laugh and we do have some fun, but we want takeaways, and we want to try to help our profession and help people understand, hey, this happens to people. And sometimes you're an island by yourself, but there are other people across the country that have this same kind of situation that you're going to deal with. So you provided some insight to people. You provided some laughs. Some people are probably, you may go home and cringe just thinking about these stories again. But what I can tell you, when we get to Nashville, I want to sit down. I got a story I want to tell you about a golf program that I won't tell on here, that I just want to tell you and get your perspective from a former golf coach.
All right, I know is that when we get to Nashville, is I'm just gonna throw a golf ball at him out of nowhere.
Okay, I better be looking then, because she'll be in the vendor hall. Next thing you know, here it comes.
Soft toss, don't worry.
You didn't happen to be at the Tennessee Ole Miss football game last year, did you, when they threw golf balls at Lane Kiffin?
He wouldn't do that. He knows how it feels, Dustin. He wouldn't do that.
I don't think I would do that, no.
It doesn't make any sense. But Nathan, I do want to tell you thanks, man. I appreciate you working around our scheduling conflicts and being patient with us. But I appreciate you jumping on here and taking a chance on us.
No, I greatly appreciate the time, and hopefully, I'll look forward to seeing you both in about 3 weeks. It's not that far away.
No, I'm excited. It'll be fun.
It will be. So thank you, Nathan, for being with us today, to my co-host, Dustin. But Also to Ticket Spigot, who is the NIAAA official ticketing partner, but also for WADA as well. So all of you
Correct.
listening in Wisconsin, shout out to you guys as well. So thank you, and we'll be back next week with another episode.